Ma'am, is my PPT visible?
Yes, sir. It's
Yeah,
visible, sir.
right. So I'll just. So good afternoon, everybody. And like I've already mentioned, that the topic of my today's talk is devising 360 feedback for teaching and learning improvements. So
Hello, sir.
yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. So, can you just put it on the slide share mode, sir?
Ma'am, I've already put it on the slide share mode. I think it will reflect on the screens in a few seconds.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. In fact, if you could just confirm when the slideshow mode is visible to everybody, then only I'll start with my presentation.
Sure, sir. It's not yet. It's still. I can still see the rest of the slides on the left-hand side, sir.
Okay. So I'll just wait for 2 minutes. Is the slideshow visible now?
No, sir. No, sir.
Maybe I'll try it once again. Okay. Is the slideshow visible now?
No, sir. So
Aditya,
sorry.
sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Aditya, sir. You just need to do put it onto the slideshow first, and then from Google Meet you go back again onto your slides.
I've already put it on the slideshow, ma'am.
Stop. No, sir. Stop presenting it. Go back onto your slides.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Stop presenting. Yeah.
Okay.
First, you just put it onto the slide mode.
Okay, first I'll just.
Then,
Okay. I got it.
yeah.
Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's. I think.
Yeah, now it's visible in the slide share mode.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So you have to pick up the slide mode wala windows.
Ma'am, I've picked up the slide
Slide
mode
mode
window only.
windows wala tab, and then you can continue.
But I have done that only, ma'am. And
Okay.
yeah.
No
So,
worries, sir. Continue, sir. No worries, sir.
okay.
No worries, sir.
I'll just do one thing. Just wait a minute. Maybe I'll just increase the system. Okay, I think I'll start with this. I think hopefully that probably there's something while it's taking some
So
there's some
it's
prop.
worked, sir. It's worked.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. You can
Okay.
start.
Fine. So like I had mentioned earlier, so basically we'll be discussing about the 360 feedback for teaching and learning improvements. All right. So first of all, what is feedback? So these are some of the definitions that you come across in various dictionaries. So for example, uh, the Cambridge Dictionary says that feedback is the information or opinion about something that can tell you if it is successful or liked. Now, this is something very important for us. See, after all, end of the day, all of us are teachers. We are basically people who are entrusted with the task of imparting education to the future generation. So basically, we are the people who work on the youth capital of the country. to create the leaders for tomorrow. Now, unless and until we perform this very, very critical role in a manner that we know that whatever we are imparting to our students, to our learners, whatever education, whatever learning we are imparting to our learners, unless and until we know that it is successful, it is yielding the right results, I mean, that entire process will be, it will just be null and void. It will not lead to any results. It will just be a waste of time. So, in order to ascertain and in order to know that whatever we are doing, whether it is successful or not, that is very important. So that, and secondly, that end of the day, who's the target audience? The target audience of whatever efforts we are making are our students, our learners. So are they liking what we are teaching them? Have we developed that interest in them that they like? Because unless and until they like it, we will not have them coming to our classes. We will not have them joining our courses. So that's why this was one of the first definitions that I came across, and which is obviously very important to what we are doing. Then the Merriam-Webster definition says the transmission of evaluative or corrective information about an action, event, or process to the original or controlling source. Now, this is again something which is very important. The transmission of evaluative of corrective information about an action, event, or process. So like we just discussed, that we are all involved in the process of teaching, learning, and end of the day, in order to ensure that it is successful and it is liked by our target audience, that is our students, it is important for us to know that are we constantly evaluating and correcting what we are giving to them? Because unless and until we have a feedback from them, which tells us that how successful are we in imparting the education which will make them successful, we will end of the day end up creating failures. You see, one of the biggest challenges that is being faced by our country today is that whereas we have the advantage of demographic dividend, but at the same time, there are numerous studies to suggest that our graduates are not employable. A majority of them, in fact, some of the most, most striking surveys and researches that have been done in this direction have pointed out that close to 70 to 80% of the people who are coming out of the regular undergraduate courses and close to 60 to 70% of the students who are coming out of engineering and professional courses are unemployable. That means they may have the degrees, but they don't have the required skill sets, which ideally they should have acquired while acquiring that degree. So you see that transmission of the evaluative and corrective information, which basically is what the feedback is, unless and until that is taken and put into action so that the original or controlling source, which is our process of teaching, learning, is corrected and made effective, till that time we will not be able to do justice to our job. Then the Collins dictionary says to offer or suggest information, ideas, etc. in reaction to an inquiry or an experiment. Okay, so this is obviously the method of feedback, that basically you set up or frame a set of questions based on which you collect feedback, you collect the responses of various stakeholders, and then you analyze that to then create those corrective measures and improvement areas or improvement points where you can work on. And finally, this was another definition, because Collins had listed a number of definitions. So another definition which I found really interesting was a process in which the factors that produce a result are themselves modified, strengthened, etc. by that result. So see, this is what is critical. Why is the feedback so important? Because it is that process in which the factors that are producing the result, what are the factors? The factors are the teaching learning process that we're imparting to our students, to our learners. That process is modified and strengthened. So in order to be able to make it more effective and in order to be able to strengthen it further, it is necessary that we have the feedback. Okay, so with these basic definitions of the feedback, let's come on to the very important question: why feedback? Because obviously right now we just discussed about the definitions, but what is the need of feedback? Because a lot of times we hear a lot of faculty members say, we've been teaching for so many years, our students really like the way we teach. So, I mean, what is the need of feedback? Then there are also a lot of, people have a lot of doubts and apprehensions about feedback, because they feel that especially taking feedback from students will somewhere compromise on their ability to improve the students. So, with all those apprehensions and doubts, a lot of times people do question the validity or the necessity of a feedback. So why feedback? So the first point over here is because improvement begins with the feedback. You see, end of the day, we are all in institutions. We are all wanting that more and more students join us, and they take up the various courses that we are offering, and then they pass out from our institutes and they do well. Okay, they do well for themselves, they do well for the institute, and they do well for the country and the society. So for all of this, it is important that we constantly strive to improve our teaching learning process. And one of the most effective mechanisms for doing that is the feedback mechanism. So here I would like to quote a shlok from the, which is the 7th shlok of the 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is what Arjun says to Lord Krishna, that Karparne dosha apahat swabhava prichhami tvam dharma sammura chetah yat shreyas cha nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyas teham shadhi mam tvam prapanna. So what does it mean? It basically, obviously, all of us know that Arjun was one of the best archers of his times. In fact, he was at the top of his game. But here, this shlok actually tells us some of the incredible qualities of Arjun, that what really brought him to the top of his game, what really made him the best archer in the world at that time. And which is that the first, if you look at the, the first part or the first half of the first line of the shlok, it says that Arjun is admitting that, yes, I do have faults. I do have shortcomings, and I'm well aware of those shortcomings and those faults. That is the first part. Then he goes on to say that because of these shortcomings and because of these faults, there are times when I'm unable to decide, when my goal is not clear, when I don't know in which direction I need to head or what I need to do. And then in the second line, he actually tells the actual reason why he was able to do so well, and which is, he says that I have come to you under your discipleship and I surrender to you. So you tell me what is it that I need to do. So you see, as teachers, as people who are involved in this teaching learning process, as a very, very important stakeholder in this entire process, unless and until we are willing to accept the shortcomings that are there, we are willing to not just accept, but understand where all we need to improve. See, even if we are good, in today's day and age, being simply good is not good enough. Constantly we are talking of, people saying you have to be ahead of the curve, or that, you have to be disruptive in your approach, right? If you really want to be the leader, you need to be disruptive. You need to create disruptions in the entire system. So unless and until we are constantly evolving, we are constantly innovating, we are constantly focused on where all we are still going wrong, where all we still need to improve, we will not be at the top of our game. So that's why feedback being one of the most credible and one of the most effective mechanisms for improving, for self-improvement. So it's important, very necessary for us. Secondly, it provides direction. See, okay, we know that maybe there are some gaps. We can understand that from the fact that maybe enough students are not joining our institutions, or maybe students are joining our institution but they are not getting good enough grades, or there could be a variety of other factors which could act as indicators to tell us that there is something wrong. But the point is, unless and until we have pinpointed the problem areas, how will we know in which direction we have to work? So feedback is that mechanism which provides that direction. It gives us that direction where we need to put in our effort. Thirdly, something which a lot of times people miss completely about the feedback, that it actually motivates the stakeholders.
Aditya sir.
Yes,
Aditya
ma'am.
sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. Are you changing the slides? Because at our screen, the slides are not changing. So,
Ma'am, I'm at the second slide. Can you see why feedback question over there?
No, we are able to see only the very first one, devising 360 feedback, the title.
Okay, ma'am. Just a minute.
Yeah, by feedback. Now the second slide.
Okay. So,
Thanks.
so the third part is that it provides motivation to the stakeholders, namely the faculty and the admin staff. Although this is a point which is a lot of times completely missed by the people, I mean, by us, but this is a point which is very important. And why does it motivate? You see, this is something that I will again come back to this point at the end of my presentation. But a lot of times, whenever we talk of feedback, somewhere, our psyche is that, oh, if we take a feedback, it's going to be negative feedback. It's going to be, something which is critical of our way of functioning. Why do we assume that? In fact, this is something, like I said, at the end of my presentation, I'll again come back to this. This was something which we were pleasantly surprised when we were wanting to implement this feedback system in our college as part of the, requirements of NAC and other accreditation bodies. Uh, a lot of people had a lot of misgivings and apprehensions about these feedbacks and all. But when we finally implemented it and when we started getting the feedback, we realized that actually it is a huge motivating factor, because it is not just pointing out to what all areas we need to improve upon, it is also in abundant clarity telling us that what all areas are there where we are performing exceedingly well and where students are really liking the way we are handling our teaching learning process. So that is a huge source of inspiration and motivation. So feedback also provides motivation. Then it improves the individual performance, because when we are aware of what our shortcomings are, when we are aware of where we need to make the improvement, and when we are honest in our approach and in our resolve to effect that improvement, then obviously it is bound to yield results, and we are going to see that improvement in the performance, right? And finally, it encourages engagement by taking ownership of the growth of the organization or the institution. Now here, this is again something very important. We may be a college, we may be an institute, we may be a university, we may be an autonomous college, or we may be a deemed to be university. Wherever we are, you see, when you have feedback, so feedback is not just restricted to only one aspect of your teaching learning process. It covers everything. And when it covers everything, then somewhere what happens is that you become aware of a lot of, because you see, a lot of times we find teachers specifically saying, no, my students really like the way I teach. I have very good reviews from them, and I'm very satisfied, and I'm doing my job very well. But today, in today's day and age, this is not good enough. This is not sufficient. Why? Because it's not just us being very good. We also need to ensure that our entire institute, our college, our university is also very good or excellent. Because unless and until the entire institution achieves that level of excellence, merely we being excellent in our very focused domain of knowledge will not really help either the institution or us. So this comprehensive feedback also encourages us to be part of other processes of our institution, of our academic institute, our college, our university, and ensures that we become part of the growth of the entire institution. So we are equal stakeholders in that growth process. Okay, now what is 360 feedback? So 360 feedback allows all the stakeholders to be involved. So like I just mentioned, that it's a comprehensive feedback. It does not just focus on one particular area, but it covers the entire institution, all the aspects, all the domains, all the areas, so that we have a comprehensive and robust feedback, which can actually tell us that what all are the areas where we need to improve. So that allows all the stakeholders to be involved and feel and be a party to the improvement process, to be a party of that evolution process, to be a party to that process of achieving that success. Secondly, feedback is confidential. So a lot of times, misgivings or apprehensions about that it may be used against some people, or it may be, used for some people. No, the essence of a feedback is that it is kept confidential, so that we only pick up the points that we need to improve upon, rather than focusing on who has given the feedback. Okay, because a lot of times when we start focusing on who has given the feedback, or when that information is available, then it creates biases in our minds. And rather than working on our improvement, we then start working on, the biases, which will only be detrimental to the development and growth of the institution. Secondly, a 360-degree feedback offers insight into specific skills that need improvement. So it will pinpoint all the areas where improvement is required and help us in finalizing what are those skills where the improvement is required. Thirdly, it gives better understanding of the feedback from all stakeholders. You see, a lot of times, 360 feedback, because it covers all the stakeholders, so it provides us the perspective of every stakeholder. Okay, it's not just, perspective of one category of stakeholders. It is the perspective of all the categories of stakeholders. So it's something which helps everybody evolve and improve. Not just faculty members, but even the management, the office staff, and other support staff. So in that sense, it creates a better understanding. Then it allows to build on current strengths. You see, just like I mentioned earlier, that the feedback a lot of times also tells us what our strengths are, which areas of our teaching learning process, of our entire education process is being appreciated. And we know that, okay, these are our strengths. So we can actually utilize these strengths and leverage these strengths to improve upon the other areas, which is something very important, because supposing if we don't know what the strengths are, then it will be highly demotivating for everyone. So it is important that while we must be focused on our improvement, we must at the same time also focus on our strengths, right? Then it encourages individuals to better understand their role and team expectations. So it's not just about our own idea about how we are, or our own understanding of or perception of how good we are. The feedback actually helps us in also telling us the expectations of others. You see, a lot of times we may feel that, okay, we are very good and we are doing our bit, but probably the institution might require our involvement in other areas also, based on the strong points, based on the strengths, based on the skill sets that we have. So in that sense, when we have these kind of feedbacks, then it helps us understand that what is the expectation of others, and then helps us work as a team and build as a team. Okay. Now let us come. So these were more of the theoretical and aspects of feedback, where we were basically dealing more with the idealistic approach towards feedback. Now let's come on to the more practical aspect of the feedback. Okay. So when we talk of the practical aspect of the feedback, okay, all of this is very good. Feedback is very good. Improvement is very good. We need to be focused on that. End of the day, we must be very, very sensitive to our stakeholders, our students. We must ensure that we are giving our best. So, somewhere all these lines look very, cliched and very idealistic. And we feel that, okay, all of this is very good. But what all other, intangible terms, what is it that we are going to gain? So the first thing that we must understand is that today, feedback is not just about an idealistic scenario of a perfect or an ideal institution. Feedback is also about how you are being evaluated by the various evaluating agencies, by the various accreditation agencies, and by the various ranking agencies all over the world. And why are all these agencies important? Because today, when we want to select an institution, when we want to select a college, when we want to select a university for our child, what do? We first of all see how good is it, and then we look at the various agencies which have set benchmarks in evaluating educational institutions, higher educational institutions. So in a similar manner, when this is the approach that we would keep for our child, we must understand that this is the approach that all the parents and guardians would keep for their children when they come to seek admission in our institution. So one of the first and most credible agencies which are involved with accreditation process, rather which the government unequivocally recognizes as the sole accreditation agency for grading the institutions, is the National NAC. Okay, so now here NAC has set up these 5 kinds of feedback as necessary and mandatory for all educational institutions who are desirous of getting accreditation from NAC and who are desirous of getting a grading from NAC. First point. Second point, these 5 feedback formats are also required to be filled up and showcased on the website of the institution when we fill up our annual quality assurance report, the AQAR report, every year. Okay, so whether it is the self-study report, the SSR that we submit before the NAC team, the NAC peer team comes to visit our institution, or whether it is the annual quality assurance report, AQAR report that we submit every year to the NAC, both these very critically look into the mechanism of feedback, look into the fact that whether all these feedback formats are available on the website, are available to the students, and that whether the institution has analyzed the feedback, has marked out the areas of improvement, and what is the effort, what is the the corrections that the institution has done, so that whatever feedback is taken is also implemented in the right letter and spirit. So these are the 5 feedbacks, and these are defined by NAC only. So the first is the student satisfaction survey. The student satisfaction survey essentially deals with the feedback of the students for individual teachers. The second is the students' feedback. So the students' feedback is basically the students' feedback for the higher education institution in totality. The third is the parents' feedback or the guardian's feedback for the higher education institution. The fourth is the alumni's feedback. All right. Alumni are like our brand ambassadors. So it is very important for us to take a feedback from them in order to understand that when students pass out from our institution and go out into the world, what is their experience? Are they happy with what they learned over here? Are they satisfied with the learning that they gathered from our institution? Do they feel that there were some things which were lacking, or some things which we could have had as an add-on in terms of building skills and other things? So alumni feedback is very important, which is again a part of the NAC mandate. And finally, the employer's feedback. The employer's feedback essentially deals with the feedback of the people who are visiting our campus for campus placements. Basically the employers, the people who will recruit our students. So it is important for us to know that end of the day, how are they grading us? How are they grading our students? And what experience do they have? Okay. So these are, so first and foremost about why feedback is required is that it is mandatory. And these are the 5 types of feedbacks that every institution must have on its website or portal. Second, the feedback weightage. Okay. We all know that there are 7 criteria points on which the NAC assesses an institution, right? And these 7 criteria points together, the total points that when you add up all the points on these 7 criteria points, the total points add up to 1000. So out of that 1000, out of these 7 criteria points, there are 2 criteria points in which feedback specifically occurs as one of the elements on which the points are provided. Okay, so the first criteria point, which is the curricular aspect, has a feedback system. So your institution is going to be graded on the kind of feedback system that you have put into place. So unless and until that feedback system is transparent, is robust, we are not just taking the feedback, but we are also acting on it. and that there is a proper analysis which is being done, and that analysis is being put into action. So that all constitutes the feedback system. In universities and autonomous colleges, uh, out of the total 150 points that are there for the curricular aspect, 20 points are allocated for the feedback system. So for universities and autonomous colleges, this amounts to 13.33% of the total weightage in that particular criteria point. For affiliated and constituent colleges, it is 20 points out of the entire 100 points that is awarded to curricular aspects, which means it is 20% of the total weightage for this criteria point. The other criteria point in which feedback specially occurs as a point, as an independent point where points are awarded, is the teaching, learning, and evaluation. And here specifically, only the student satisfaction survey is taken into account, which is the students' feedback for the faculty members. So for universities, it is 30 marks or 30 points out of 200 points, which is 15% weightage. For autonomous colleges, it is 50 points out of 200 points, which is 16.66% weightage. And for affiliated and constituent colleges, it is 60 points out of 350 points, which is 17.14% weightage. And now, if we were to just add up these points and take it as a percentage of the total 1,000 points, so for universities, you see that it is 50 points out of 1,000 points, which is 5% of the total weightage is given to feedback when the NAAC comes for assessing us. For autonomous colleges, it is 70 points out of 1,000 points, which is 7% of the total weightage, right? Which is given to feedback. And for affiliated and constituent colleges, it is 80 points out of 1,000 points, which means 8% of the total weightage goes to feedback. Now, you may feel that these percentages are very small. I mean, out of 100%, feedback is only having a weightage of 5% or maybe 7% or 8%. But now let us look at the other aspect. There are 34 sub-points in these 7 criteria points. Okay. So 34 sub-points, and those 34 sub-points constitute for a total of 100% weightage. So if one were to do a simple mathematics, mathematical calculation, one would realize that it is less than 3% per sub-point, the weightage. All right. And if you were to compare that with the percentages, the total score that I've just mentioned over here, it means that feedback is carrying more weightage than the average weightage carried by any sub-point. Okay. So in that sense, you see, feedback is important, even if we want to get a good grade in our NAAC. And this is, just the direct impact. Now, let us look at the indirect impact. Okay. NIRF criteria lists these 5 areas where it gives a score. Okay. Teaching, learning, and resources, research and professional practice, graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and peer perception. Each of these 5 points is given a score of 100. And each of these 5 points then again has subcategories. So if you were to look at these 5 points, then out of these 5 points, 2 points, that is the graduation outcomes and the peer perception, feedback plays a direct role. Okay, because graduation outcome is basically how many of our students have got jobs, how many of our students have gone for higher studies, they have got admission in institutes of higher education, how many of our students have become entrepreneurs, how many of our students have maybe started a startup, and those kind of things. So graduation outcome is basically centered around how our students are faring after they have passed out from our institution, which is clearly reflective of how good we are in imparting our teaching learning process, which is critically dependent on the feedback. And the peer perception, the perception of the employers and the academic community. So obviously this perception can only be built, as in it can be made favorable, if we are enforcing a very robust feedback mechanism, because feedback mechanism also involves the feedback from our employers, the employers of our students. So unless and until we are taking what they feel, how they are judging us, how they are grading us, unless and until we take that into consideration and improve, we will not be able to score high on this point. So you see, in 2 of these 5 points, there is a direct reflection of the feedback process on them, on the scores. And in the remaining 3 points also, for example, teaching, learning, and resources. So here it basically talks about how many students are joining, what is the teacher-student ratio and all those things, what are the learning resources that are being offered, e-resources, and all of those things are part of this criteria. So now you see how many students will join us. After all, students will join us based on their perception about our institution. And their perception is going to be based on how well our existing students have performed, or our pass outs, our alumni are performing. So somewhere it is the feedback which will also strengthen this indirectly. Research and professional practices essentially deals with the research profile and the research impact of the faculty members. You see, a good faculty member with a good research profile and a good impact will definitely want to join a good institution. So unless and until we ensure that we are, looking at our feedback very seriously and improving ourselves, we will not have good people joining us. And finally, outreach and inclusivity. These are again areas which are part of the feedback process. So that feedback also tells us that how good are we in terms of our outreach and inclusivity. So in effect, even the NIRF ranking parameters also directly and indirectly have the feedback at the core of their assessment. So you see, these were some of the things that are important for us to understand. So it was not just about an idealistic scenario that yes, we are wanting to take feedback and we are wanting to improve. It is also about a realistic scenario where unless and until we are sincere and serious about the feedback and ensuring that it is implemented, it is taken into account, and corrections are made accordingly, we will not be able to either get a good grade in NAAC or get a good rank in the NIRF ranking. And then obviously these are just the national ranking and the accreditation agencies. Then we have to also look at the world ranking agencies like the QS World Ranking, like the Jiao Tong World Ranking, like the Times Higher Education World Ranking, like the Shanghai World Ranking. So all of these. So it's not just that we should be satisfied and content with just the national ranking and accreditation. We should then aspire for the international rankings so that we make a mark globally. So next point is that how to prepare an effective feedback. So the first part of preparing an effective feedback is prepare ourselves. In fact, I read this very interesting quote somewhere that failing to prepare is preparing to fail, or failure to prepare is like preparing for failure. So the first part of creating an effective feedback is that we must make proper preparation, which means we must do our due diligence, ensure that we have taken the various kinds of feedback mechanisms, the various aspects of feedback, the various categories and criteria for feedback into consideration in preparing our own feedback mechanism. We must look at some of the top institutions. We must look how they are collecting feedback. We must assess how they are evaluating their feedback and how they are implementing their feedback in order to be able to create similar feedback mechanisms at our institution. You see, we must never feel shy of doing this hard work, doing this paid work in preparing how we can create a robust feedback mechanism. And for that preparation, we must look around. So preparation for a robust feedback is critical if we really want that feedback to be effective. Second is listen. A lot of times we try to, manipulate the feedback. No, that is not good. That is not the purpose of the feedback. You see, by manipulating the feedback, we may be able to please a select few people, and that too only for a short period of time. But end of the day, it will not lead to quality improvement. And if it does not lead to quality improvement, then we will not have the desired results. And if we don't have the desired results, our institution will start going down. So we must be open to listening. We must be open to criticism. We must develop this ability to take positive criticism as something which is very constructive for our development, and even take negative criticism as something which we must learn to ignore and continue to work in spite of that negative criticism. You see, a lot of times people specifically indulge in negative criticism just to demotivate us. No, they're doing that kind of a thing must in fact motivate us, because it is actually telling us that okay, some people are already jealous of the progress that we are making. That is why they are making such uncharitable remarks. So it is important to listen, and we must have that discerning mind, that discerning intellect, to be able to distinguish between what we are listening and how we need to utilize it. And finally, act. Whatever feedback we are collecting, we must analyze that feedback, and after doing a due analysis, a proper analysis of that feedback, we must then act in the right direction. We must ensure that that feedback and the analysis is put into action, because unless and until we do that, we will not see the improvement that we are wanting to. Okay, then the next thing is, I will now be going into the specifics and some of the broad parameters that we must take into consideration while preparing these 5 types of feedback that have been made mandatory by the NAAC. So the first is the student satisfaction survey. All right. So in the student satisfaction survey, the first part, I mean, again, now these are things which I have put over here as something which, again, I will not say it is my personal opinion. No, it is definitely not my personal opinion, but it is basically an aggregation of a general trend that I have seen across many top performing institutions, and is also a trend that we have followed in devising the feedback mechanism at our college, that is the Deshbandhu College. So the first point, or the first indicator, is the teaching learning approach, which means that when students are coming to us, when our learners are coming to us, then what is the teaching learning approach that we are adopting? Are we making it inclusive? Are we making every student feel involved in that teaching learning process? Is it that we are only selecting a top few students who are the best students of the class or top performers and only focusing on them? No. It must be inclusive. It must encourage and motivate every learner. You see, it is very easy for us to even put in a little bit of hard work in students who are already excelling to make them even better. But the real test of our teaching learning abilities is when we make students who are mediocre come out with flying colors after they have passed out of our institution. And I'll give you one such example. Last month, we were having our alumni meet. So in that alumni meet, one of the alumni made this very interesting remark, and that really set me thinking. What that alumni said was that when I joined Deshbandhu College, I was a very mediocre student, and I had got good grades, but not very, just good. And I was very shy and introvert, and somewhere I was satisfied with just doing about well in my studies. And that student said that through these 3 years that I spent at Deshbandhu College, it really triggered that fire in me to achieve excellence. And that is why I have achieved whatever I could today. So you see, that is what is important. That each and every student who becomes part of our family, are we working hard enough on that student to motivate and encourage that student to also perform at his or her best? Okay. Second is the pedagogy. That is how we are delivering. So our pedagogy should be interactive, illustrative, and informative. So we must ensure that when we are collecting a feedback, these points are taken into account as part of the feedback. That are the students feeling involved? Is it interactive? Is it a two-way communication? Are we listening to what the students are telling us in the class? Or is it just a monologue? We know that, okay, this is the syllabus we have to cover and we're just going on. without realizing whether the students are able to follow it or not, whether they are responding to our questions, whether they are raising doubts and queries on areas which are not clear. So interactive, it needs to be interactive. It needs to be a two-way process. You see, in today's day and age, earlier on, the teaching learning process was teacher centric. So the teacher would decide everything. But now, increasingly, the teaching learning process is becoming globally student centric or learner centric, which means it is the learner who's of prime importance. He or she is the most important stakeholder in this entire process. So unless and until he or she is satisfied, we are not achieving our goal. So it should be interactive, and we must take a feedback on that. Illustrative, that whatever pedagogy we are adopting, is it illustrative? Is it illustrating the concept that we really want to put across? And is it informative? Are we giving all the information that is required so that our students stay abreast with the latest developments and stay ahead of their peers in terms of the information and in terms of their knowledge? Then the third thing is about concept, content, and delivery. That the way we are putting across the concept, is it well received? The content, are the students appreciative of the content that we are providing to them, the content that we are delivering to them in the class, and are they able to follow it? And finally, the delivery. Yes, we must work on our communication skills also. We must ensure that our communication skills are such that they make the students feel welcomed. They make the students feel involved. They make the students feel confident to ask questions, to raise doubts. Okay, this, then the feedback must also, because in today's day and age, the information and communication technology tools, the enrichment, I mean, there is so much of talk about creating e-content, creating MOOCs. So all of that is ICT enrichment. So we must also take a feedback about that, the ICT enrichment environment that we are providing to our students in terms of the content that we are creating in our own institution, and in terms of the content that we are providing to them as part of the national ICT framework. Is that enrichment good enough? Are the students able to benefit from that enrichment? Or is there something lacking which we need to work on? And finally, regularity and punctuality. Are we regular and punctual, not just in our classes, but also in terms of our giving assignments, in terms of our evaluating the assignments, in terms of our providing a feedback to our students based on their performance in the class? So that regularity and punctuality has to be there, because it is a continuous ongoing learning process, teaching learning process. So we must be regular and punctual in ensuring, not just in terms of our classes, but also in terms of the entire process of how we are evaluating them, how we are apprising them of that evaluation, and are we being able to tell them that what are the areas of improvement, so that they also have enough time to improve upon those areas before they go in for their final assessment. The second feedback is the student feedback for the higher educational institution. So this feedback also, one of the key factors in this feedback should be the teaching learning process and methodology. So you see, one is obviously at a teacher level, okay, at the level of the teachers, of the faculty members. But as a policy, is our institution adopting the proper teaching learning processes and methodologies? Have we implemented these methods and techniques across board? Have we made it uniform for all faculty members? Because a lot of times, you see, when quality is made uniform and when benchmarks are made uniform for everybody, then only we can achieve a 360-degree improvement or a comprehensive improvement. A few teachers adopting innovative pedagogies, adopting new techniques, adopting interesting techniques, and making a mark is good for them and good for their students, but is not good for the institution. Why? Because that will not help the institution ensure that all the students are performing at par. So the institution needs to ensure that the best practices are adopted by it in terms of the teaching learning process and methodology. Another very important aspect, you see, at the beginning of my talk, I mentioned about these various surveys and uh, studies which have pointed out that our graduates are not employable. So skill development, upskilling, inclusivity, mentorship, and student support. Is our institution working on these aspects? Skill development and upskilling is something which is very important. You see, if you look at the curriculum across universities, you will find similar curriculum. There will be obviously some changes, there would be some differences, some variation, but broadly, the curriculum remains same. Even the UGC, at least for the undergraduate courses, has fixed the curriculum, and you have 70% similarity in that curriculum and only 30% deviation is allowed. So in such case, what extra, what additional input are we giving to our students so that they remain ahead in the race? They remain ahead of their peers. So that is something very important, and we must take feedback for that. Then inclusivity. We must ensure that all sections of our students are feeling included. They are part of our entire teaching learning process, not just the teaching learning process, but part of the entire environment of our institution. Mentorship. Has the, you see, a lot of times individual teachers do involve themselves in they do involve themselves in devising these mentorship devising these mentorship roles and taking it up with students and providing that mentorship, that guidance, that direction to the students. But what is important is that as an institution, have we set in place, have we put in place mentorship programs? Have we made it as a policy in our institution? So that is something important. And student support. So we must evaluate ourselves on these. Then the facilities that the higher education institution is providing. So we must take a feedback about these various facilities, be it sports, the NCC, the NSS, the extracurricular activities, the performing arts, etc. So there can be a whole list of facilities that an institution is providing. It would vary from institution to institution, but definitely we must take a feedback about these facilities from our students. Then grievance redressal and gender sensitization. This is a very important area, and we must be very, very sincere and honest in taking a feedback on these. Because unless and until we ensure that all the grievances of our students, of our stakeholders are being redressed, and that there is gender sensitization, somewhere we will not be able to do justice to the students and to the faculty members and to the entire team that is working at our institution. So this is something very important, and we must take a feedback on this, that whether the processes that have been put in place, are they effective and are they actually leading to the desired results or not. And finally, students' feedback about the library. You see, library is said to be the temple of knowledge of an institution. It is the, it is the gateway to knowledge. So a library has to be one of the key areas where we need to focus on in terms of collecting our feedback. All right. So specifically designed feedback on library is important. Then about the laboratories, the various laboratories that are present in our institution, we need to evaluate our laboratories and we need to have a feedback on that, because it is the laboratories which are actually providing bulk of the skills that we are wanting to impart to our students. Then institution student dealing, that is when the students come to our institution and when they go to any office, when they want to do any kind of a function, like maybe deposition of fees, filling up of the examination form, filling up of the admission form, filling up of various other forms, or appearing for an examination, appearing for a test, appearing for some placement drives, it could be anything. How friendly and student-centric are we in these kind of dealings? So we must have a feedback on that, so that we ensure that we remain very, very focused on listening to what the students have to say and then improving upon that. The third type of feedback is the parents or the guardians feedback of the higher education institution. So again, you see, we again need to collect similar uh, data from the parents or the guardians also, which is that what is their perception of the teaching learning process that we have adopted in our institution, whether they are satisfied. You see, a lot of times we see, in fact, we even do it ourselves, that whenever our children are studying at an institution and we have our colleagues or friends whose children are of similar age and who are the peers of our children, we tend to compare. Okay, in our college, in this, in the college in which our student or our child is studying, they're doing this like this. Okay, this topic is being discussed like this, or they've adopted these pedagogies, they've adopted these techniques. And the other person may say, oh, in our institution, but we're doing it like this. When the institution to which my child is going, there we've adopted all of this, they are doing all of this. So you see, there is a constant comparison. So we must ensure that are the parents feeling satisfied, because they would have an opinion based on the information that they're getting from their friends and colleagues and peers. So we must take that into consideration in ensuring that our teaching learning process and methodology is the best. Second is continuous monitoring, evaluation, and examination. Are the parents feeling that their wards are being kept engaged throughout the year? There is a proper monitoring process which the institution is adopting. There is a proper evaluation process, a continuous evaluation process to ensure that if the student is falling back, if the student is not doing well, then immediately it is brought out and corrective measures are taken so that the student can also make improvements. And if the student is not making improvements and if the matter needs to be escalated to the guardians or the parents, then that is done. And finally, the examination. So we must take a feedback from the parents on that. Then we must take a feedback from the parents on their perception on the infrastructure and facilities that we are providing. Okay, so that is also very important, because that tells us that are we comparable with our competitors? And you see, we just don't need to be comparable, we need to be better. So it is important that we focus on our infrastructure and facilities, we invest in our infrastructure and facilities to ensure that we are ahead of our competitors. Okay, then a feedback on the grievance redressal and problem resolution. That is very important. Are the parents and the guardians feeling that if their child, if their ward was encountering any problem, was the college proactive in dealing with it and resolving it or not? So all of these, because you see, parents' feedback creates the feedback of the society at large. And in NAC as well as NIRF ranking, there is a feedback which is taken from the society surrounding the institution. So grievance redressal and problem resolution, a feedback on that is very critical if we want to make a good impression in the society where we are existing. And finally, how do the parents and guardians rate our library, laboratories, and the student dealing of our institution? Okay, so this was as far as the parents or the guardians feedback is concerned. Next feedback is the alumni feedback for the higher education institution. And in this feedback, you see, like I had mentioned earlier also in my talk, that the alumni are the brand ambassadors. They are the visiting cards of our institution. Anybody who is who's not in direct contact with us, who's not a direct stakeholder in our institution, which means the staff, the faculty members, the administration, the management, the students, the parents, and the guardians. They are the direct stakeholders of our institution. But people who are not direct stakeholders of our institution, you see, they will only work on perception. And it is our alumni which will create that perception in the society for our institution. If today we are saying that, okay, a particular institute is, top notch, when we talk of, let's say, the IIMs, or we talk of the IITs, or we talk of the Institute of Science, or we talk of maybe Harvard University or Cambridge University or Massachusetts Institute of Technology, why are we so awestruck by them? The reason is that their alumni are today at the top everywhere in the world. So you see, their alumni have created that value, have created that perception about those institutions that, oh, if you get into this institution, your life is made. Nothing can stop you from success, from achieving success. So alumni feedback is very important. Why? Because unless and until we ask our alumni that how are they feeling when they have gone out into the world, when they are facing the world, do they feel equipped and capable and strong enough to face the world, to face the competition? Or do they feel that they are lacking in something? That maybe in their 2 years or 3 years or 4 years stay in our institution, maybe there was something more that we could have done for them. Maybe something more that we could have added to their capability, to their skill set, in terms of honing their overall competence. So unless and until we ask them about that, how will we ensure that when they go out, they become the brand ambassadors and they create the best value for our institution, right? So the alumni feedback must focus on the infrastructure and facilities that was provided to them so that they tell us that, okay, all of this was good, but maybe these were the areas where we could have improved. So that the people who pass out from our institution now are even better equipped, are better placed. They have better skill sets, better competencies and capabilities to perform in the world. Then we must take alumni feedback for the teaching, learning, and evaluation process. Because you see, it's not just about a student getting good grades in our institution. Point is that when this same student goes out, steps out into the world must also recognize his or her capabilities and competencies. A student may be an A-lister in our institution, but supposing that the world does not rate him as an A-lister, then for all practical purposes, he or she is a failure. So we must take a feedback from our alumni so that we ensure that our evaluation system, our teaching learning system is good. Then the resources and the ICT support. We must take this feedback from our alumni that once they've stepped out, do they feel that the resources and ICT support that we provided them, were they good enough? Then the services. We must take this feedback from the alumni. A lot of times, students don't give that feedback when they are part of the institution. They may not be so honest. But once they've passed out, then obviously they are very, very honest. So we must capitalize on that honesty of the alumni and get that feedback from them. And finally, we must get the feedback from our alumni about the brand value and the association that they feel towards their alma mater. You see, if a student is passing out of our institution, does that student feel proud to be a part of this institution? You see, or does a student feel, oh, if I'm going to say that I'm from this institute, everybody is going to look down upon me? So the student must not feel apologetic about saying that, oh, I've done my graduation, I've done my post-graduation from this institution, or I've done my higher education from this institution. No. He or she should be proud of the fact. So in order to ensure that, we must take a feedback on this count from the alumni. And the final feedback, which has been mandated by NAAC, is the employer's feedback. Ultimately, the success of our institution hinges on the fact that how employable are our students. And that can be gauged from the feedback that we get from the employers who are visiting our campus for campus placements, or who are maybe visiting these various placement fairs, job fairs where our students are participating. Unless and until we take a feedback from them, we will not be able to ensure that we are making the desired improvement in order to ensure our students perform exceedingly well and they are at the top of their game. So for that, the key areas that we need to focus on in terms of designing the feedback is the students' performance and communication skills. We must take this feedback from the employers, that when they were engaging and interacting with our students, did they feel that the performance of the students was up to the mark, and the communication skills? Then the domain knowledge and core competencies. We must take a feedback from the employers on this aspect regarding our students. Then the students' etiquette and preparedness, and role suitability. You see, as an institution, it is our responsibility to ensure that we send the right students for the right kind of companies and for the right kind of jobs. Otherwise, if we send all the students for all the kind of jobs, what will happen is that the employers will feel wary. They'll say, "Arey, so many students are coming, but most of them don't have the skill sets that we require." So we must screen our students according to the requirements that the companies have and then send them. So that role suitability is very important, and we must take that feedback from our employers, that whether do they feel that we are doing that kind of a screening process or not. Then placement cell support and facilitation. That the placement cell of our college is a critical agency in dealing with the employers. So whether the employers are appreciative of the placement cell support and facilitation or not, that is something critical. And finally, the college support and facilitation. That did the employer feel that the college has made adequate efforts, adequate arrangements, and is welcoming and responsive to the needs and requirements of the employers when they are visiting the campus for campus placements. So these were the, this was the last part of my talk. And just before I conclude, there is just one more aspect that I would want to delve upon, which is visibility of our feedback. Okay. So obviously, like I mentioned, that this is a mandatory requirement that all the feedback forms should be available on the website or the portal of the institution. So nothing new there, but the visibility of our feedback, the analysis that we are doing, is that analysis visible? And is it communicating what we want to communicate? So for that, I'll just stop sharing this PPT, and I would like to share
Can I
my...
ask a question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, my name is Sulekha. I wanted to ask, when you discussed NAC criterias and all,
Yes, ma'am.
do they also extend to the establishments which issue certifications? For example, we have FICCI, we have ICF, all these higher forums who issue certifications. Do they apply to them as well?
Ma'am, they may be having their own criteria, because here specifically I've taken the criteria that has been set by NAC, because these are the criteria which are important and essential for us to comply with. So these other agencies like FICCI or all these agencies, they may be having their own criteria, but at the same time, a lot of those criteria may be similar to these. They may have some specific requirements based on which they may be fixing the criteria, but more or less, there will be a lot of common areas in those criteria. Secondly, all these agencies also somewhere their certification or their assessment also plays an important role when we go to NAC or when we go for NIRF ranking. So that also plays an important role.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question I wanted to ask.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is out of pure observation. There are quite a good number of management institutes, where from graduation years, when we talk to the management about any of these criteria that you have just mentioned, most of them do give us this response that their fees is not so high. All the students, most of the students are from from a background which they can where from they cannot afford all such kind of trainings, and we sometimes need to invite people from outside who will pay for them, and they don't have enough scholarships. So these kind of issues are there. Any insights from from your side?
Yes, ma'am. One, that there are certain government schemes wherein institutions can apply. For example, I'll just give you one example of such government schemes. Government, I think in the year 2015, okay, launched a program called GYAN. That's an acronym. It stands for Global Initiatives of Academic Networks. And this program was awarded to institutions, not just institutions which are 100% government funded, but this program was awarded to institutions which were private, which were being run by private management across board. So there was no discrimination against any institution, simply based on the proposal that the institution submitted and the requirements that were there as part of that GYAN scheme. So all the institutions which fulfilled that requirement and whose proposals were found in order were awarded this GIAN scheme. Now, the government was giving...
Could you please repeat that? What was it? GIAN?
Yes, ma'am. GIAN. This is Global Initiatives of Academic Networks.
Academic networks. Okay.
Yeah. I'll just give you a brief about this scheme. What the government was doing was that it said that, okay, you can have a course which is ranging from 10 days to 14 days, okay, which is basically a 2-week course or a 4-week course or even a 1-week course. So you could have these various slots in which you could define your course. The proposal for the courses was to be submitted by the host institution, and the advantage of conducting that course, the effectiveness of that course in terms of the skill upgradation or the skill enhancement or the upskilling or the innovative pedagogies that it would provide to the students, or the unique learning experience that it would provide to the students, or adding to the competencies, what kind of competencies it is going to add. All of those were to be provided in that proposal based, and a specific requirement of that program was that you have to conduct that program in association with an international faculty. So you could not apply for that program unless and until you had on board an international faculty, and the government was paying 100% for the travel of that international faculty. For the stay had to be arranged by the institution, but the travel and the honorarium for that international faculty, including some of the local charges like the local travel and all of that. So a lot of that was taken care of by the government. So the government was giving, had fixed a certain amount of grants for a 1-week course, for a 2-week course, or for a 1-month course. And based on that, the government was giving those grants. So you see something, exactly the problem that you just mentioned, that if we have our institution which is basically catering to the socially not so privileged category of students who cannot afford very high fees, and as a result of that, and especially if we are a private institution, then we can't raise our fees, since we have to cover all our expenses from our fees only. So obviously there are only certain amount of facilities that we can provide to our students. So you see, but such schemes of the government are a good mechanism to ensure that we get the best people in the world to come to our country and to deliver that course. And you see, that course was, the course was to be video recorded and it had to be live streamed. So that
It
those were
sounds
some of
interesting, sir.
Yes. So, those kind of schemes are there. And other important thing that we can do, especially if we do not have that kind of backing, financial backing, is to utilize numerous government schemes that are there for all the institutions. Again, the government does not discriminate whether government institutions are applying for those schemes or private institutions, like the National Digital Library, like the SWAYAM or the MOOCs platforms, and various other kind of repositories that the government has created, which has enormous amount of content, both static as well as dynamic. So we can encourage our students to join those courses. Those courses are mostly free of charge, or even if the government, you see there, I'll tell you something very interesting about all the entire SWAYAM platform. Any student can join any course in the SWAYAM platform, which is completely free of charge. Only the certification is what is charged, and that certification is also some 1,000 rupees. So it's not much. And at the same time, those MOOCs courses are being offered by some of the best people, best faculty. So and from of the best institutions. So you see, in that manner, we have to be a little more aware about, because the government has invested tremendously in creating resources which are available to everyone, so that inclusivity and that equity in dissemination of the teaching learning process is achieved, and it does not remain in the confines of a privileged few only. So we must
Well said,
focus
sir.
on that.
Very well said. Very well said. And I think the more this awareness can be spread among teachers and students, then these schemes can really benefit a large population.
Definitely, ma'am. So Okay, so I'll just so
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
yes, thank you for now. And yes, the one thing that I just wanted to share, which I said will be the last part of my talk. It will not take much of your time, but I just wanted to show you, and which is that this is the website of our institution, and as you can see, which is also the requirement of NAC, that you must have feedback at the homepage of the institution. So if I go onto this feedback, you can see that the drop-down menu has all these feedbacks over here, the feedback forms, which are available. So these are Google Forms, which students can fill online. It is a dynamic process. The moment a form is submitted, uh, it adds to the database and the analytics that we are doing backhand. Now, this is something important. Over here only, we have also put the feedback analysis reports. So let me just yeah. So for example, the student satisfaction survey. So we have devised our feedback forms. They are Google Forms. So in real time, we are collecting the data. We have put analytics over there as part of that backend mechanism, so that the moment the feedback is submitted, immediately the data goes into the database, and accordingly the analytics is done. And we are trying to ensure that at least once in every week, we are updating those analytics on our website. So you see, in this manner, we have the various kinds of feedbacks, okay, uh, and with the responses displayed in this manner. So tomorrow, if any agency, any ranking agency was to come and visit our website, they would even, you see, if supposing if tomorrow somebody wants to take admission in Deshbandhu College and they want to know, okay, what is the college like? I mean, what is the response of the students who are studying there? What is the feedback of the alumni? So you see, the website has everything over there for them. And they can just go through the entire feedback and they can see for themselves that, okay, as per the feedback, do they feel that, yes, this is the institution where their ward should be studying? So this is student satisfaction survey. Then you have the parent feedback, right? And I mean, obviously, so the feedback basically lists these various criteria that we have formed as collecting feedback. And then there is the feedback for infrastructure, the parents' feedback for infrastructure. Okay, so departmental infrastructure, laboratories infrastructure and facilities, then library infrastructure and facilities, so on and so forth. And similarly for the students' feedback for the institution. So we have specific feedback for the laboratories, for the libraries. For example, this is something interesting. We had put this feedback. So recently our library, our college library was judged the best library, best maintained library in the entire Delhi University. So
Congratulations, sir.
thank you so much. So, when we put this feedback, so I got a call from our librarian. He, after maybe a few days, must have looked at the website and said, oh, there's some feedback. So he looked at the feedback. Oh, there's a feedback for the library also. And he went through this feedback and he called me and he said, sir, I'm really happy that you've put this feedback on the website, because finally I feel so encouraged at all the hard work and all the effort that I have put in. Okay, I have got these awards for our college, for our library. But you see, with this feedback, anybody and everybody who visits our website will know the kind of efforts that we are putting in our library to ensure that our library is doing justice to all the students. So you see, it was hugely motivating and encouraging for him. And he specially called me up just to say this. So you see, like what I was mentioning to you at the beginning of my talk, that feedbacks are not just about criticism. They are also about encouragement and motivation. And I mean, if you go through these feedbacks, what you realize is that bulk of the people, bulk of the stakeholders feel very happy to be part of our institution. So we must put that feedback also on the website, so that it motivates and enthusiasm. I mean, it creates an enthusiasm amongst the stakeholder that, yes, it's not just that we are putting in a lot of hard work without any results. The hard work is yielding the results also. So I mean, with this, I would like to end my talk, and all questions and queries are welcome. So if there are any questions or queries or any other observations, I am most welcome to address them.
Yes, Aditya, sir. Now it's open for all the participants. Any of your participants would like to ask any question, please?
I'll say it was a highly informative session, sir. Many things you have mentioned, which we didn't know, and I think we will take now this to the next level by spreading awareness about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, do we have any other question or a query from any of the other participant?
So,
Yes, ma'am.
how you integrate that feedback to your portal?
Ma'am, okay, so what we have done is that we actually have Google Sheets, okay? So the feedback is collected in the Google Sheets, and from the Google Sheets, then we have created these charts, these pie charts, and those pie charts are then, so the links for those, so what we've done is that, let's say our college, Deshbandhu College, in fact, the Delhi University has given all the colleges of the university, they've given it a Google account. So our college also has a Google account. So the @db.du.ac.in, that is the Google domain which has been given to our college. So what we have done is that we have created, like, we have an IQAC email ID, and all this feedback is linked to that IQAC email ID. So the Google Sheets in the Google Drive of the IQAC email ID, all of this data is getting collected over there, and there we are doing the analytics, and that analytics is then being linked to our website. So we create a link on our website, which is a link of the Google Sheet linked to that email ID. And that link is shared on the website, so that whatever feedback we are getting, it remains a dynamic process, and that feedback also gets updated on the website.
So it is updated every day or once in a month also?
Ma'am, we try to ideally ensure that within minimum, like maximum in 1 week, it should get updated.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome, ma'am.
Yes, if there's any other question, otherwise we'll move ahead with our next session. Yeah. So I think it's very clear to all the participants about today's session. So finally, we come on to our end of the session. We are very thankful to you, sir, for such a wonderful and insightful session. And feedbacks are really very motivating and encouraging, and it should not be taken as a criticism, which usually the people are afraid of. And it has become a need of an hour, where I think all the institutes, most of these institutes, they should come with the really interesting part which you have shared, is that it should be put onto the websites where it's visible to everybody, students, parents, they can go over there, they can find it out. So this should be encouraged with the other institutes. And another very important thing which you have shared with us was about the schemes, the Gyan scheme. It's really very appreciable, and various other schemes which you have shared with us. Thank you so much.
And the NDL, National Digital Laboratory and Library, and the Swayam scheme. It
Yes.
is quite interesting. I'm just visiting the site right now.
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, every institution, every academic institution can register on the National Digital Library portal. And once you're registered, then you have access to the entire resources, e-books, journals, and everything that is there on the National Digital Library. So, without, because like what you mentioned, that there is paucity of funds, there is paucity of funds everywhere. But the government has created this portal so that if you are registered over there, government is subscribing to a whole lot of content over there, and you have free access to that content. So that is something which is really wonderful about these schemes.
Truly said, sir. And these schemes, like when we talk about Swayam, it has got a lot of options for the students. So whatever the area which interests them, they can get themselves enrolled over there. They can take the concepts, learnings from them. And plus, that is the base for the new education policy too. That yes, as a student he can choose any options. No, it's not necessary that yes, being a part of science he has to move on with the science subjects. Okay, so he has a lot of choice over there, a lot of variations available, and this would be a key base for the future students. So with this, we would like to end up our 4th day of FDP program. Thank you so much, sir. And for proposing vote of thanks, I would request my friend, Miss Priya, please. Priya, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, over to you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your expertise on importance of feedback for improvement, not only for personal as well as for academic improvement too. This feedback is mechanism definitely help us to find out strength, weaknesses, and areas of improvement, and it is given highly weightage by our academic bodies also. And this session giving alert that various factors that institution need to be considered in 360-degree way, that small things matters a lot for a feedback. And all these aspects explained in such a simplified way that we must need to accept feedback that we have received and act or perform or improve close by the expectation. So, on behalf of Viva Institute of Management and Research, I heartily congratulate you, sir, for your consistent contribution and support for the academic fraternity for quality improvement. Thank you once again, sir, for accepting our invitation and enlightening us with wonderful knowledge. And as I mentioned by sir, it's important tool for appraisal for each and every institution. I hereby request our participants to please feel feedback for furthermore improvement for organizing such faculty development program. So thank you all the participants for your active participation and engagement throughout the session. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving me
Thank
this
you, ma'am.
opportunity. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all the participants.